best way, just from the writing perspective, if we take away all of the, unnecessary things like money, if we go just from the writing perspective, the thing that I always tell people, especially younger people, it still feels weird for me to refer to like young people. That I still feel like I'm talking about myself. Kids these days. I'm not that.
Right?
Anyway.
Yeah, no, so true.
Um, but I think especially for younger writers, is to read a lot of stuff. Read stuff, figure out why you like it, figure out what makes it work. That also works for movies and television. If you watch like an episode of classic Star Trek, for example, it has a very strict six-act structure. Um, that's how I learned to write, which is why I'm referencing Star Trek specifically, is that like there's all these rules. So if you watch like 15 or 20 episodes of Star Trek, say The Next Generation, you're going to notice consistency. Like the first alien is always lying. Like
I grew up
it's
watching
true.
Voyager.
Right? Like for me, yeah, that was the one that was airing when I was in high school. So it was like, yeah, first
Yeah.
alien always lying. Like if
Yeah.
if something good is happening to Harry Kim in Act 2, it's gonna end badly. Like there's just that kind of like habitual thing where it kind of gets you into the storytelling habit.
Yeah.
One of my favorites for this right now is Leverage, the
Okay.
TV show. And if you can get your hands on the DVDs, the commentaries are amazing because they talk about how they're writing and how they structure the episodes. Each episode of
Oh,
Leverage
that's so
has
cool.
6 specific ingredients.
Yeah.
And they talk about how they can mix them up in terms of order, which is also pretty neat. Um, so yeah, just read everything, watch everything, find out what makes it tick. Um, is my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is to finish your stuff, and other words that start with S that I'm not supposed to say during library visits. Because you can't fix it if it's not done, right? Like you can have 400 3-page long manuscripts and it's not going to get you anything. You have to have something that's done.
Mhm.
Because then you can go back and edit it. Then you can go through with a crit group. Like then all that kind of stuff can happen. Um, and I think again, coming back to young writers, where they run into trouble is this idea of like, write what you know, which is
Mhm.
stupid. Um, like I was from a town of 500 people that had a golf course and an old house that wasn't even haunted. Like, what was I supposed to write about? Um, and so for me, it's not necessarily write about what you know, it's write about what you're willing to spend a lot of time learning about, because
Yeah.
that's what will happen. You will spend a lot of time researching, you'll spend a lot of time rereading and reworking your way through it. So it's not so much write what you know as write what you're willing to know. I think anytime you make a world bigger, you've done a good job.
Mhm.
So when Lucas was starting, he was pushing boundaries. It's hard to remember that sometimes. Like his books
Yeah.
were super, like his books, his movies were critical of the American military complex at a
Yeah.
time when that was not something you did.
Yes.
And like it could get you blacklisted basically. And he was like, yeah, Vietnam is bad. Like the war in Vietnam is bad.
Yeah.
Vietnam
Yeah.
itself, fine. The war in Vietnam, not so much.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of been that progression. And because the whole series is built on hope and the idea of rebellion and making a
Mhm.
better world, it's really built into the DNA of the storytelling. The
Yeah.
key is you just have to start bringing in more storytellers,
Mhm.
because talented as they are, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, there are certain things they're never going to be able to do
This
as
is
well
true.
as other people, because they're old mostly,
And they're male,
and they're
so
white, old and
yeah.
white, and so there's just things that there's nuance they're never going to understand.
Yeah.
And so when you start bringing in people like Justina Ireland, Jen Heddle,
Yeah.
um, Kathy Kennedy,
Yeah.
and like Carrie Beck and like Curie Hart, like the list just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's a lot more on the animation side, but you get this sort of wonderful thing.